The acting group executive for generation at Eskom, Rhulani Mathebula, is leaving the power utility. Today is his last day on the job after only 6 months in the position. Mathebula replaced Phillip Dukashe in May, and this was this year after he resigned 1 year after being in that position. Mathebula joining me now to discuss his future plans, hopefully, after his departure from Eskom. Mr. Mathebula, thank you very much for making your time. I couldn't believe it when my team said you had agreed to do this. It's not often that you agree to such interviews. Let's start with what you are going to be doing with your time now that you have exited Eskom.
Look, there is a lot of things that one can do. Obviously, I still have the responsibility to make sure that I put food on the table. So that remains the focus. But obviously, I had indicated that I would want to have an opportunity to look after my health and spend time with my family.
Yeah.
And obviously, for the first time after 19 years, I will have a free December month, something that I longed for a very long time.
Yeah. When your imminent departure was announced some 2 weeks ago by Jan Obelhoza, he said that the demands of this job had impacted not just on your health, as you've just mentioned, but on your family life as well. Explain to us, I suppose very briefly, if you can, just how challenging holding this position has been, because as we stated earlier, you are leaving just 6 months after taking over a position that was previously held by Phillip Dukashe, who himself cited health reasons as part of his departure.
Yeah. I think it's mainly the issue of values and what I value personally. So I have got young kids whom I prefer to spend with over weekends. I've been doing that for the few years, obviously, that they have been part of my life. And this is something that was very difficult to do or when one is doing this role. You know, you would be home, but you would still be working, and that for me was one area which was I felt that the role is taking too much more than I can offer, and hence I started looking for something else to do.
Yeah. I want to understand the pressures of this job. So, was it to end load shedding whenever it arose? Was that the source of the pressure and perhaps the strain that your body was taking? Or was it much more involved than that? For example, understanding the source of the breakdowns at these various power stations.
Yeah, look, the issue remains that you have got a desire to end load shedding. You have got the desire to succeed and make sure that under your leadership things happen. But you find yourself obviously being inundated with a lot of issues from plant breakdowns and many other matters. You find yourself having to appear in courts for different reasons. You have to appear in Parliament and explain certain issues, media briefs. That in itself, and you still want to live a normal life, it becomes very difficult to balance the two.
Yeah. So in other words, you couldn't take leave?
No, you can take leave. Actually, when I resigned, I had taken leave. And the leave was mainly for me to take time and recover, because I could tell that my body was not well. But obviously, while you're there, you ask yourself, then what? Because after coming back to the office, it's just a matter of a few weeks, and I'm back at the state that I'm at. So what is the use? So that's what made one to make such a call.
Did you battle some kind of depression? Because I'm guessing now that the pressures of this job, as you described them, it could easily lead someone towards that. I'm just trying to think out aloud as to when you say it had started affecting your health, in what way?
Now, look, I mean, all of us would know when we are well and when we are not. So I obviously was experiencing severe pains, different kinds in my body, and I knew that taking time off will obviously help to deal with that. But thinking that after you have done all that, you will still go back to a place that causes such symptoms on your body. That's what bothered me. And obviously I wouldn't want to see myself being diagnosed with chronic diseases, pursuing a salary. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Reports of sabotage, the brazen theft of coal, diesel at various power stations, this has now become more publicized by Eskom itself in recent weeks and months. Was this criminality always there, Mr. Mathebula, or is it a new phenomenon?
Look, it's always been there. It is just that it seems to be on the increase. And I think obviously the current issue, the war in Ukraine and the demand of coal outside the country has just exacerbated things, more especially on the coal space. But matters of corruption have been there, and I think failure to deal with them, it's also creating room for it to be on the increase. And this continuously undermines all the efforts and all strategies that we have in place. You just don't seem to win in any way, because criminality just seems to get the best of you all the time.
Yeah. Well, so if it was always there, this criminality, clearly there was reluctance, I suppose, to go public with this information on the part of Eskom, and I suppose you would have wanted law enforcement to deal with that, as they appear to be doing that now. Why would you say there was reluctance to make this public? Because obviously this was now, or this has over time been affecting the functioning of these power stations. Just a few days ago, I think he was speaking at the Daily Maverick gathering in Cape Town, the CEO, Andre Durate, saying that at least certain stages of load shedding were purely based on this criminal activity that is going on at Eskom. And so it prompts this question as to why the reluctance to talk about it publicly then.
Yeah, I do not necessarily believe it would have been reluctance. And I recall many a time in our media briefs, we obviously talked about this issue in different forms. We mentioned sabotage, we mentioned a lot of things, but obviously on the background, we were doing our own investigation so that we can be sure and have evidence to prove what actually we suspect is going on in our business. And I believe it has become more easier now to pronounce when you have evidence, or else it just becomes mudslinging and you do not necessarily have concrete facts of what you're referring to. So some of the matters that probably looked like it was a sabotage, in my mind, it is not necessarily that. It was just an act of corruption. People had found ways to benefit from plant breakdowns, and they wanted just such incidents to continue because it puts money in their pockets and so forth. And that is still an issue that needs to be dealt with in Eskom because it's actually undermines any philosophy or strategy that you may put in place.
Is it much more widespread now than it's ever been, you think?
Look, I think it is, and it will continue to spread until it is kept, because in the past, obviously, if you were to ask Eskom, there is a lot of reports. Myself as well, I was inundated with multiple reports of activities that are happening in power plants. People were fired, people were dismissed. But you just find yourself always chasing your tail because you're trying to find someone in the act. And, criminals always find ways to hide their trade. So it has always been a chase for many years of finding out who's doing what. You would recall, in many cases, the chief executive himself always spoke about what Eskom pays for a bottle of milk, what Eskom pays for a broom, and all those type of things. And these are the things that has been there. And as long as we do not, someone is not put behind bars and sentenced for some time, people continually believe that they can continue doing these acts because it is of benefit to them in one way or another.
And with this criminality clearly not abating inside Eskom, I remember at some point there were reports that some managers at these power stations, their personal lives had become threatened. Was your life ever threatened?
No, my life was never threatened, but I had to assist colleagues during my tenure to get close protection because their lives were under threat. And most of the time it was when they hold people accountable, when they deal with these issues of corruption, fire people, suspend people, and so forth. And then these threats and all sort of stuff will start. And at the end, some will need close protection. And when you are observing such, you always ask yourself, when is it coming to you? And in what form will it actually come? And you can choose to wait until it comes, or you can choose to stay out of it.
Given what you describe, and I'm slightly dragging you into the political realm now, given what you are describing, what's your reading of Minister Mantashe's comments these past few days, referring to Andre de Ruyter as, quote-unquote, a policeman who doesn't seem to be au fait with the technicalities or technical difficulties that beset Eskom, and he's busy chasing criminals. Is that fair comment, or do you see his comments as those of someone who is not aware of the situation as it holds on the ground?
Yeah, Tole, I've been in the business now for 19 years. And I can assure you, when I took over from Phillip, I always believed that our problems can be solved. But however, there is no plan that will ever survive the element of criminality that we have in our business at the moment. And I'm a firm believer that it doesn't matter what strategy you have at this point in time. If this element of criminality, the fraud and corruption that is happening in our business is not dealt with one way or another, with the success rate will be very minimal.
How would you describe your working relationship with Andre de Ruyter and Jan Oberholzer?
I think it's been great. I believe that they have obviously tried their best, or they are trying their best to make sure that the business thrives. There is a lot of decisions that have been made in the recent past, which I believe will be beneficial in assisting the organization to move forward, more especially issues that are relating to people, whether it's giving people salary increases and many other related benefits in that manner. Our working relationship has been well as colleagues, and that for me was good enough for us to get the job done.
19 years of experience, that is now no longer going to be available to Eskom as you take leave. Jan Oberholzer, I read a few days ago that he will be leaving Eskom in April next year. Do you believe that Andre de Ruyter can run that utility with all these expertise that have been available to him suddenly out?
Yeah, look, there are people in the business that are more experienced than me, that they have got many years in the business, brilliant engineers, brilliant managers in the business. So I do not see that our departure would really should be a call for concern. I believe that those who are still in the business should step up and do what they need to do. But my advice remains: we will need to confront the element of corruption and fraud in the business if we are to succeed in turning around Eskom.
Well, just on the score of engineers that are still available to Eskom, if you count yourself and Jan Oberholzer out, how many engineers are still left at Eskom highly qualified?
Ole, we have got thousands of engineers in the business. We have got thousands of engineers in the business, and I'm counting now the three core divisions within the business, which is transmission, distribution, and generation, without counting, obviously, our subsidiary, Rotec Industries. There is thousands of engineers in the business. Obviously, they are at different levels. And some of them probably still require some level of exposure and training. But there is great engineers in this business. I can assure you that.
Yeah. Can I ask you to just stay on for just a minute or two longer? I want to take a break. When we return, I want to discuss with you South Africa's just energy transition that is being talked up by the president in recent days. We'll continue now. We are in conversation with the outgoing acting head of generation at Eskom, Rhulani Mathebula. Mr. Mathebula, thank you for staying with us. Let's wrap up this interview. I want to talk about the just energy transition, which the president has been ramping up in various platforms, both inside and outside of the country. But I want to go to a specific area, and that is that we have been told that we have massive quantities of coal in South Africa to last us decades. But based on conversations I've had with people that were once close to Eskom, your company or Eskom experienced or once experimented with what is called the underground coal gasification. First, explain to us in plain language what this is, this coal gasification. This is to try and align with the climate change imperatives.
Yeah, the process will obviously be a process that allows you to extract the gases from the coal underground without actually mining and having to burn the coal as we currently do with the current technology, where you have to throw these tons of coal into your boiler furnace and combust it to be able to generate the heat that you require to generate steam. In this technology that you just mentioned, it's where you will be extracting the gases from underground and use those gases obviously for combustion purposes and still be able to generate energy in that process. So all that you will be avoiding, obviously, it will be the emission-related matters that we currently are sitting with because of burning coal and all the technologies that are required to actually reduce emission. As you know that at this point, Eskom is expected to build a plant called an FGD at Medupi to be able to cap the emission that comes from burning coal.
If this research was pursued to its logical conclusion, are you able to tell us what its findings were?
Totally, I cannot recall what the last report actually stated on this matter and how it was concluded. It was obviously before my time, so I do not have the details on how that was actually concluded as a business decision into whether we continue or proceed, or we actually don't.
Yeah.
That detail I don't have at the moment, yeah.
If it were to be restarted, because clearly it was abandoned at some point, if it were to be pursued with renewed vigor, do you think that this could be the viable technology for South Africa, which has an abundance of coal, and so you're trying to bridge that gap to say we're going to use the coal that we have, but use it in order for it to align or comply with climate change demands, whilst at the same time gradually introducing the renewable sources?
Yeah, totally. As I indicated, I do not have the details of the last business case that was presented on this matter, which would have actually detailed the pros and cons versus other technologies, which resulted in the project itself being abandoned. So I think it will require that one revisit that project and the report to see what were the pros and cons and what was the reasons why the project itself was canned at the time, and it was seen not to be viable, because each project needs to be weighed against other possible projects that could provide the same product. And in this case, obviously, the project will have to be compared to the current technology of coal that we have and the renewable technologies that are also in place, to see whether is it still worth it to pursue that technology or not. And as I said, I don't have the details of what the last report stated.
All right.
Which could have the details for that, yeah.
Okay, all right. Look, I'm not going to press you any further on that. In fact, let me ask you my final question. We're going to have to put this question to Eskom to understand why this was abandoned in the first place. As someone who has been so involved and right at the top, do you think that within a space of, I think it was 18 months, if not 2 years, unless I'm wrong, you'll correct me here, can South Africa genuinely see the back of load shedding? Or perhaps what will it take?
Tony, from where I'm sitting, the Eskom has the capacity to can end load shedding in terms of the plants and the capacity of the plant and what the plant can actually deliver. And I want to believe actually I was thinking about it, that when the CEO at some point announced the 18 months, even myself, I think I would have made the same pronouncement when I had looked at what the plans actually look like. Because technically, there is few things that you need to do to get this plant back to its glory days. But it becomes difficult when there are still individuals who benefit from poor performing plants, plant breakdowns, and so forth. That is what keeps taking you backward all the time.
Interesting indeed. Let me thank you very much for affording us your time, sir, and all the best into your endeavors into the future. Rhulani Mathebula, last day
Thank you.
as Eskom head of generation. Thanks indeed for your time.